Today, the Below Average Joe's MMA show present the weekend preview. And we are heading over to London, ladies and gentlemen, to see the trilogy bout between Leon Edwards, headshot dead, taking on Kamaru Usman, who looks to remind Leon who he is, in the words of the former champ. We also have a co-main event that surely won't go to full 15, but even if it does, it's bound to be a grand old time as Rafael Fiziev looks to make that jump into contendership, but he's going to have to take that spot from the man he's fighting, the human highlight reel, Justin Gaethje. All this and more, and it all starts right now. Welcome back, everybody. Threw a little extra. What?
Whip.
I knew Dom was gonna say some stupid shit like that. I mean, this is the guy that. No, don't you dare put that dumbass clip in here. This is almost as bad. I have a ton of love and admiration for what Dom and the boys are doing, battling for bogey. But the fact that they have been around for 2 months now, been around for 2 months, a little over 2 months, and he's already twice used the thing. It's never been funny, the let's go to the beach. Can we just establish that that's never been funny? And Dominic has used it twice in 2.5 months. But anyways, happy to be here with Dominic, of course. That is my co-host, my right-hand man. My right hand, my go-to, as some would say. And I'm the man on, well, your right, not yours as in Dom's, yours as in you watching right now.
Right.
But I am to Dominic's left.
Yes.
I'm dressed like a college basketball coach, and there's a good reason for that, because happy March Madness, everybody. As we are recording this, the real official start of March Madness is today. I know they do the playing games and stuff for a couple days. But this is like the real start of it. The round of 64 kicks off today. We're kind of missing out on some action by being on here, but this is what we do for you people.
Yes.
So while you're enjoying the games and you got us in your ear, just know what we sacrificed to give you this content. And now, Dominic, let me throw you just a fire question off the start.
Okay.
If MMA had a March Madness style tournament where you took the 64 best MMA fighters in the world, what are the chances that John Jones, the UFC heavyweight champion, would not win at all?
So these are weight classes excluded?
Man. Yeah, it's just pound for pound. So like you kind of think of it like if John Jones is the number one overall seed, he's probably taking on like a middle of the road flyweight. I don't know, 64
something like
fighters.
That.
So
I don't know.
Taking on a flyweight that's maybe not in the UFC or something, So what do you like? Think of it that way in the seeding arrangements.
Yeah, I would say his odds are still pretty high. I mean, he's the number one pound for pound fighter in the world right now for a reason. I'd have no reason to believe otherwise in a 64-person tournament. I think he would be the heavy favorite to win an MMA college basketball tournament.
It's easy to call him because he's already the GOAT, but weight classes are there for a reason. So obviously the UFC heavyweight champion probably should be the number one overall seed. But man, the question breaks my brain when you if you were to ask me who are the other three number one seeds, my brain might break. Can you really give Islam a number one spot when
what would the 4 seeds be?
Because that's 155 pounds. Man. I mean, Francis Ngannou is probably one of them, right? For doing all of MMA.
That's
no,
tough.
He's definitely one of them. Come on. I mean, because there's weight classes for a reason. Demetrius Johnson is an amazing MMA fighter, one of the best ever. But if he goes up against Ngannou, it's over. There's
only one way to find out. You called for that fight many moons ago, actually, on this show, if you remember.
Did I really?
To happen in one championship.
There's a clip. But yeah, it's a really dumb question. But I wanted to just get your thoughts on it real quick because March Madness is such a special time of year. Always expect the unexpected. Actually, Dominic, I think March Madness is the most comparable sporting event to what we get on a week to week basis as combat sports fans, as MMA fans,
Oh, that's beautifully said. I would agree.
because you have underdogs that are
Mm-hmm.
always knocking off the guys that nobody expects them to beat. You're never out of it until it's over. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that is so much resonates with what MMA is as a whole. And I probably didn't
Mm,
do a very good job of comparing it there. But I think I think it kind of works if you think about it. Don't think too
mhm.
hard though. So a lot of rambling. We're here for UFC 286 preview. And Dominic, I think we just go ahead and kick it right into that main event.
We
Your
must.
trilogy bout, the main event of the evening, sees champion Leon Rocky Edwards as a plus 205 underdog look to once again beat the man that he put on a highlight reel forever, the
Mhm.
former champion Kamaru Usman minus 245, the former number one pound for pound great, and honestly still probably in the conversation as a top 10 UFC fighter of all time. So not only did Leon have to beat him once, he will now have to beat him dose.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
Dominic, my first question for you. Usman was not undefeated in terms of his MMA career before that fight. He did lose like his second fight ever. Really weird. Um, a guy who doesn't even fight anymore, I'm pretty sure, submitted him.
Mhm.
But once he went on that very long undefeated streak in the UFC, tied the record, right? 15 fights,
Yeah, he was one
15
shy
straight
of beating
wins.
Anderson, I think.
Yeah, so I think he was tied with Anderson at the time. Looks like he's on his way to a decision victory. Then out of nowhere in round 5, when all hope seems lost, Leon Edwards lands the head kick of a lifetime,
Mm.
completely changes his life, completely changes the course of both fighters' lives in a lot of ways. And we know what kind of impact that kind of shot can not just have on your physical capabilities. Once the chin cracks, it's like, is it ever really the same?
Mm.
We also know mentally what
Mhm.
that kind of loss can do. I mean, I can't think of a more, for as great of a fighter as Usman is and all the factors going in, he's winning the fight. He looks damn good doing it. He's a pound for pound great. And yet that loss, I can't think of a like harder loss to have to swallow than that one when you consider everything about it. I mean, obviously the factors I just listed, but then Dominic, the pictures or the videos of him where his eyes are glazed over and he's
Oh,
staring
yeah.
up into the rafters. I mean, they really he really got put, for all the world to see, he got made to look a fool a little
Mhm.
bit. So we know that kind of mental aspect too. The fact that he was winning the fight, he still gets knocked out unconscious for the whole world to see. There could be a little bit of hesitancy to put himself back in the fire, what
I
Leon
see what you
Edwards
did
had to do
there.
to win that fight. So my question for you to kind of start things off, based off what you can see, not necessarily by the words that Kamaru Usman has spoke this week, but even by the actual body language that he has given off, the aura he's kind of given off, maybe even the time between these fights, how little we've seen of him. Do you think that this adds to your opinion or notion that maybe he's coming back here somewhat a more uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a more nervous or a more
Mm.
cautious version of himself, or do you expect him to come back here and be the Kamaru Usman that dominated the welterweight division for so long?
I am not expecting him to necessarily be cautious, and that's only because you really do look at that fight, and he was winning that fight all the way through. I know Leon had one round, at least I scored a round for him. I
Yeah.
don't remember the official scorecards, but Kamaru was dominating that fight 2-3-4, was winning round 5, and I just feel like he slipped up. The opening was there, and Leon capitalized on an opening. So with a coach as well minded as Trevor Whitman, especially in the striking department, I feel like they have absolutely hammered those techniques needed to avoid that left high kick. And if you take that away, there was success the entire fight for Kamaru with his game plan. So I don't think he's going to be more reserved or more cautious than what that second fight was. I expect a very similar version of Kamaru Usman. I can't come out and say I expect a better version. It's been 6 months. It's been very quiet from him. As Noah said, he is coming off of a loss at the end of the day. He's not getting younger. He's getting older. So I can't go out that far, but I do think we get a similar version, at least as of now, going into the fight. So I still, I guess, have more questions for Leon because all in all, he still had the bigger gaps to correct in these past 6 months if he really wants to stay the champion. Because I don't know if that knockout's going to come as easy this time. He may have to win a decision. And can he do that with the skills that he had in August? Probably not if you just go watch that fight, but can he do it now 6 months later with more preparation? That's what I'm most intrigued about. Give me your thoughts.
I pretty much agree with a lot of what you're saying. For Leon, what I kind of look at here, his life completely changed from that
Mm-hmm.
fight.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know pay wise exactly what he's getting now, but there's a little bit of extra
Mm-hmm.
cash on him for being a champion. But Dominic, you were talking about how you watched the press conference earlier today as we're recording. I mean, Leon Edwards had basically been a face in a crowd, even as one of the top welterweights in the world
Yep.
for the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
And then one win shot him up to where all of a sudden they're chanting Rocky. Usman can't even hear the questions. I mean, he is an absolute megastar over there now.
Yes. Yes.
And all the footage to back it up. You see all these little videos coming out that are just awesome. BT Sport, who has done a good job of being behind Leon even before. They did that really great video that had like the actor playing him as a kid
Yep.
that they tried to bring out, but then COVID kind of
Yep.
ruined that, and then they brought it out again. Great video. So BT Sport, like some of the media there have tried to be behind him, but I feel like the fans just had this very passive
Mm-hmm.
just interest in what he was doing. So it feels like that's great because he has a ton of support and probably a ton of confidence because he knocked out such an all-time great in Usman, but also a lot of pressure.
Oh, so much. So
There's a
much.
lot of pressure for him here. I mean, he is the hometown guy, right? I mean,
The card's
I
built
don't
around him,
This card's built around him. You don't have people like Patty Pimblett, Molly McCann, Tom Aspinall,
Yep.
who are here to send the fans home happy even if Leon loses, as long as these people win. No, no, no. It is him.
Yep.
And then in terms of the local talent, I mean, you got some good fighters on here. You got Jack Shore. You have, a lot of these got Gunnar Nelson, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people that are very good. But in terms of the star power, he's
the
solely
show.
responsible for sending these people home happy.
Yeah.
Now, I know Leon has had frustrations with his lack of exposure to a wider audience. He's felt a bit slept on throughout his career, and I think he has been. I think he has good reason
Yes.
to feel that way. But Dominic, now that he kind of has what he had been looking for, I almost wonder if part of what made him so capable of winning a lot of these fights and doing it his way, even if it wasn't the most exciting fashion of a fight, was that he didn't feel that pressure. He
Yeah.
was sort of, again, kind of this underrated, kind of under the radar guy. And he was kind of just able to go in there, put on his type of performance to win a fight. Even if it didn't necessarily make the fans happy, it would keep him on that winning streak, keep pushing forward. So now that there's potentially all this pressure and all this expectation to replicate or come close to replicating what he did in August,
Yeah.
do you think that could at all be a hindrance to what kind of performance we're going to see from Leon? Or, do you feel otherwise?
No, I think it definitely could. We hear fighters all the time talk about how the mental side of this game is so much more important than the physical side. Kamaru today in the press conference was saying, he's never experienced the noise. That was the word, the quote that they kept passing around. He's never had all of the eyes on him from being a champion, all of the opportunities that come with being the champion, all of the obligations that come with being a champion. And now he's getting to experience all those. And Kamaru was just kind of touching on that. How will he handle it? He obviously doesn't think he will. Leon kind of blocked that narrative out. He said, I'm laser focused. We see it, luckily, Saturday night when they're locked together in the cage. But I think it could definitely be a factor. I'm telling you, man, it's hard to not pick Kamaru again. Like, I know off recording I came on and I said I'm kind of leaning Leon. I am, but it's just so hard to count out an all-time great regardless of coming off of a loss. When you look at how he was performing, when you look at how he's performed even before Leon with 5 title defenses and a 15-fight win streak, this is a big time fight. And you're right, like, all the pressure's on Leon. And it's weird, Kamaru kind of doesn't have much pressure at all. Like, his legacy's kind of cemented.
I want to stop you there just
Please
because
do.
I want to build off that.
Yeah.
Because it's not just like a lot of people might think just because of the way Usman lost that there's this pressure for him to get his title back and make another run at it. But you listen to some of the quotes, I mean, he doesn't have many fights left. I think we kind of come to accept that even before that first Leon or the second Leon fight, technically back in August, he had talked about wanting to spend more time with his kids and family. So you can tell that there's a foot inching out the door.
Yeah.
And also you hear all this stuff about his knees. I mean, the man can't walk downstairs unless he's going backwards. I mean, how the hell is this guy one of the best welterweights in the world? I don't know.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, Dominic, Usman has virtually no pressure in this fight.
No.
None.
I don't think it's crazy.
Like you said, his legacy's pretty much cemented. Like, sure, if he wins and were to kind of continue on, maybe win a couple more fights, sure. Could he go from being like the 11th or 10th best fighter in UFC history to like the 8th? Sure, but I mean, I don't think he's necessarily going to be, I don't think
can he catch GSP,
Yeah, I don't think there's that many more legacy-making opportunities for him
I just don't think there's enough. Yeah.
And sure, I understand wanting to get this win back, and I bet that's part of the fuel here. Because for all we know, if he would have beat Leon in August, that might have been it. You know, maybe that's all. He even said it at the press conference. There's not a whole lot left for him to do.
Yeah,
which kind of makes him dangerous. A man who doesn't feel like there's really anything to lose here. He doesn't have a title. He already has his legacy pretty much cemented. I mean, Dominic, not only everything I just said about Leon and the pressure he's feeling, let's also look at the fact that if Leon were to lose this fight, how much of that goes away?
Yeah, man.
That support, that the people just chanting his name, that feeling like our guy from our part of the world is a world champion. If he doesn't have that anymore, does it go back to the way it was or close to it?
Yeah.
You add that to the laundry list of factors that could be really just overwhelming to any normal person. And I don't believe Leon's a normal person. I mean, this guy is extraordinary for what he's able to do inside of a cage. But it's definitely worth noting that this is part of the reason I hate immediate rematches, by the way. Because I feel like if Leon loses, it somewhat sours that
It does,
moment.
I think. Yeah.
It makes it less memorable. It makes it less impactful. You already saw it. Who else? Who did it? I feel like people have already forgotten Juliana Pena ever beat Amanda Nunes.
Man, great point.
And the same would happen if Alexa Grasso loses a rematch with Valentina. Now, I say that, and that's why I hate immediate rematches. I would love if Leon had gone and fought like a Gilbert Burns or a Bilal Muhammad, and if he looked great there, got a win, Kamaru goes and fights, I don't know, you throw in somebody there and he looks good there. Then you do the rematch, and I feel like it's bigger, and also it legitimizes Leon's title reign, and it shows that Kamaru has not lost a step. He's still that guy that can win a title and be a defending champion. That's not maybe how it would have went. For all we know, Leon goes and loses to the title fight. Yeah. But I'm just saying, I just don't love immediate rematches for all those reasons. But despite that, the numbers kind of tell you, typically in these situations, the guy who pulled off the upset, the guy who's coming in and is defending in the immediate rematch scenario,
Wins
typically
again.
wins.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can't help but lean Usman in this fight. I didn't lean him enough to where I put any money on
Yeah.
him. It's usually a good gauge for how far I'm leaning. That's not always the case because there's some guys who I feel confident in, but I don't love the line on
Right.
them.
Right.
Minus 245 is a bit steep. And I will admit, if you asked me immediately after UFC 278, I think it was,
Hmm.
I would have been like, oh, I think Usman wins that rematch. Just you see how that fight went, you know how the
Yeah.
first fight went. Just
Yeah.
knowing their styles, you felt like Usman just has an edge. I will admit, as it's gotten closer, I'm still decently heavy on Usman, but if anything, I'm less than I was in August. Like,
Mm-hmm.
despite the fact I feel like he's done a lot of the right things, he's sort of taken himself out of the spotlight.
He
And,
has.
not that Leon's like really, I mean, really, Leon's not even been like, despite all the stardom he's built up, it's not like we're seeing him,
Right.
in
Right.
front of a camera every 5 seconds. He's sort of a chill, low key guy, anyways. So it's been kind of a weird few months where we haven't really seen much of these two guys. But yet somehow I do kind of feel myself inching just slightly toward Leon. And I don't know if I'm buying into a lot of the support that I'm seeing now that he's back in front of the cameras and stuff, or maybe more to do with Usman potentially being on his way out and that lack of pressure, maybe a lack of motivation
Mm.
at the same time. All this may be for naught. For all we know, none of this could be really factors, and we're going to get basically the same fight we got the last time.
Yeah.
But despite my feelings that maybe that is what we're going to get, like if you asked me to predict, I'd say Usman by decision. Dom, I don't think that really speaks to what we've gotten history wise,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
makes me think we could be in for something absolutely
Special.
memorable,
Mm.
special, crazy, unpredictable. Who thought when Usman rematched Jorge Masvidal after that dull first fight that he would knock him out cold?
Yeah. Yeah.
After the way DC knocked out Stipe with one punch, that despite winning the first 3 rounds of the fight, Stipe would be able to come back with body work and knock him out. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
these are the kind of moments that we have such preconceived expectations for, and yet that's how we end up getting surprised because in this sport, nothing is that consistent.
Yeah. You literally never know. And it's like, if obviously I'm expecting Kamaru, as I said, to come in with the polished techniques to not get hit with that same head kick again. But I am expecting Leon to fend off takedowns better. Not that he did awful in the first one, but obviously the more and more Usman came with those, he was able to have more and more
Well,
success.
didn't Leon? Isn't that how he won the first round in that fight? Didn't he take Usman down or
Yeah, or
somehow?
had some sort of reversal that ended
Yeah, and
up
he
on
was on
top.
top.
Yeah, yeah.
So I mean, that's that. Leon is definitely a more well-rounded fighter than people think, or
Oh
people.
yeah,
His takedown defense. Yeah, I mean, I Usman definitely got I don't know what the percentage was, but
yeah,
it feels like on memory, Usman did a pretty good job of being able to take that fight down when he wanted to. But at the same time, and I did feel like that was wearing on Leon in the later rounds.
hmm,
He started not being able to fend off the takedowns as well. But yeah, I think with some time, some training that maybe again, this guy's got just so much more support behind him now, and that could stretch out to all avenues. This could be even in his training,
mm,
more focused training on him, the champion, one-on-one type stuff. You got to think he's going to come in a better version than he did last time. Can we
yeah,
say the same for Usman? I expect much of what we got from Usman in the first fight, or the second fight, but it wouldn't surprise me either if he's somewhat of a lesser version of himself.
yeah. I'm actually glad you said the wearing out part for Leon for the second fight. He said today, and I didn't know this until today. He felt that the altitude in Utah got to him as well,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that drained him some.
Yeah, I never think about that either, and I know
Because
that plays a
Kamaru trains in
factor.
Colorado at altitude. So we'll see if the gas tank even holds up better for
Yeah,
Leon in this
that's a
one.
good
Because you
point.
saw on the
Yeah.
stool there he was drained. He was Mentally, I think drained too, but physically. So that's a whole other aspect here that I never knew existed in that second fight. Now I know going in here, this could be the most different of all three fights for all we know on Saturday night.
It feels so easy to predict, no matter which way you feel, like no matter which side of the coin you're rooting for or bet on or believe is going to win, which tells me that that's not at all what's going to happen.
Yeah. Expect the unexpected.
Yeah. Let's talk about that co-main event for a second, Dominic.
Good golly jeepers.
Yeah, this one should be fun. Justin Gaethje, the human highlight reel, is back, coming off his title shot loss to Charles Oliveira a little less than a year ago now. Plus 190, taking on the surging and promising Rafael Fiziev, who has been taking out everybody. The second guy to finish Rafael dos Anjos. First one to actually knock him down.
Yeah.
Fun
That's
fact.
crazy.
So Fiziev comes in a minus 225 for, and some of the, I've heard a lot of different opinions on these odds, Dom. Gaethje has the track record. He's fought for the title twice.
Mm-hmm.
He's beat guys like Michael Chandler. He's always been in these really fun fights, and he's fought literally nothing but the best in the world. Wins over Tony Ferguson.
I think every fight he's ever had has been against a top 10 opponent.
Yeah, like he's 6-4 in his UFC career, but the 4 losses, I mean, you're looking at Eddie Alvarez, Dustin Poirier, Khabib, and Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
Those are 3 former champions and then 1 former interim champion. So
yeah.
If that don't tell you anything about the kind of quality of competition this guy's fought, then I don't know what does. But the question is, Dom, all the damage he's taken in his career, has it caught up at this point, Coming off that loss to Charles, where it was I fucking love that first round. Justin knocked down Charles twice. Then Charles comes back and lands a monster overhand right that drops Gaethje, and then once Charles had his back, it was pretty much a wrap.
Yeah.
Fiziev isn't really a threat in that avenue. He's not really a guy that's looking to submit you necessarily. He's a much more calculated striker than Gaethje, I would say. I would even go as far to say I think he has a much better arsenal of weapons on the feet. Like I think he's more creative with the strikes. I think he has more weapons, but I say that, but Gaethje has maybe the hardest hitting punches and the hardest hitting leg kicks in the division. So can't take too many of those. So Gaethje had said coming off that fight with Charles, he was going to heal up. I think he had to get some surgery, maybe on his nose or something. He's always having nose issues, I think. And he said, I'm going to make one more run at it. So like I said in the intro, Fiziev is the surging guy looking to really firmly establish himself as a real contender moving forward. But it feels like to do so, he's going to have to take that status away from Justin Gaethje. Is that kind of how you're feeling about this matchup?
No, I think so. And you know what I like so much about this? Obviously, it's going to be insane for however long it lasts. It's probably going to be a lock for fight of the night, to be quite honest. Quick fact, too, by the way, Justin Gaethje's had a bonus in all 10 of his UFC fights, too, which is just insane. But my favorite part about this fight, 10 fights in the UFC for Gaethje, 6-4, all against top 10 opponents. Rafael Fiziev, I don't remember which way they say it. He's 6-1 in the UFC. He's won 6 straight since his debut. Progressive steps up each way. Neither guy have fought someone like each other. Gaethje's not really fought a technical yet aggressive kickboxer striker like Rafael. Rafael's never fought someone that is going to come at him and not stop until he gets a finish in Justin Gaethje. And now they get to clash, number 3 versus number 6. This is Rafael's chance to enter title contention, not just amongst the best, into title contention. And for Gaethje, shout out to him, by the way, for taking this fight. It's something we talked about off recording. Some of these top guys need to let the young guns get their opportunities at least. Justin's the first to lead that charge. And he's taking a big chance here, but if he wins, he solidifies and shows how damn good he is. Because this would be one of the best wins Gaethje's had in the UFC I think, if he can beat Rafael here on Saturday night. So that is my favorite part, is that, yes, they fought somewhat similar opponents, but nothing quite like each other. And that just makes it so much more intriguing, so much more fun, so many more questions.
Here's a question, Dom, to kind of keep things moving along here. This fight's 15 minutes, 3 rounds. These are two guys that, for Gaethje, he's kind of become used to fighting 5-round fights. I mean, I think he may have more 5-round fights than 3 in the UFC. I don't
I
know if that's true
probably,
because most of the time they don't go that long.
yeah.
Meanwhile, Fiziev is coming off of a main event 5-round fight against Dos Anjos. Who do you think that favors, the 3 rounds versus 5? Do you think it favors either guy? Or,
Hmm.
I mean, I know both guys, especially for Gaethje, it's not typically his style to go a full 15 minutes, but he has done it.
I kind of want to say Gaethje it favors.
I kind of feel
And
the same way.
I think I'm saying that because the Bobby Green fight with Rafael sticking out to me. Because that was a
Yeah,
3-round fight that was
yeah.
actually really, really competitive. When on paper you think it probably shouldn't have been, Not that that's not taking anything away from Bobby Green. You just, Rafael should win that fight convincingly, but he didn't.
And I
So
mean,
I
I
think I
mean,
would go Gaethje.
you look at when Fiziev after that fought Dos Anjos. Not that I don't remember how the fight was scored, but Fiziev finished the fight in round 5, and he was probably winning even at the end of the 3rd round. But he definitely picked it up. Like like his stamina, he's more of a calculated striker, picks his shots well, still hits hard, still throws with a lot of power, but he's able to measure it just enough to
Mm,
reserve himself for the whole 25 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever. He didn't do a very good job of that against Bobby Green. Like he was
mm,
really gassing late in that fight.
yeah,
But then against Dos Anjos, I felt like he was the much fresher guy. And a lot of that could have been just the accumulation of damage on RDA going into that 5th round. Meanwhile, though, in this 3-round bout with Gaethje, Gaethje's going to come out hot and heavy
mm-hmm,
right
mm-hmm,
away. So if he's able to tag Fiziev with a few shots in round 1, even if Fiziev maybe is again the more technical striker or maybe lands more shots, but he gets rocked a couple times, that's 1 round down. You don't
yep,
have 4 more rounds to establish any level of dominance. This is kind of similar to what we were talking about with Peter Yan
yep.
last week. This idea that not that Fiziev is a slow starter, but you imagine he's going to try to work that more calculated approach against a guy like
Well,
Gaethje.
especially, yeah,
I'm not really expecting him to look for a firefight here.
yeah,
So he may not it may not matter though, because Gaethje just finds a
yeah.
way to get inside and land those kind of shots. So that is an interesting dilemma. I tend to favor the 3 rounds for Gaethje. I still lean Fiziev, but I thought I'd ask because I feel like that is, even if both guys aren't necessarily accustomed to going the full 15 or full 25, it's got to favor somebody.
Yeah, and I want to say too, because I know you were talking about how you're still leaning Fiziev. You obviously have a bet on him. What we've seen in the 4 losses for Gaethje, he's never been like outworked, outclassed. Like even the fight with Habib, it was a really close first round. He won that first
Yeah.
round on the judges' scorecards.
Yeah.
So he never has been like just absolutely outclassed. But do you
Every
think?
fight he's had his moments. Like even the
Yeah,
Charles
yes,
fight where it was a first round submit, he knocked Charles down twice. I mean,
right. Does Rafael have the skill set on the feet to outwork and outclass potentially Justin Gaethje in a striking matchup over the course of 15 minutes?
I'm gonna say yes. Do I is that the most likely outcome?
Right, right.
Probably not.
Yeah, yeah.
But I do see a scenario for sure, and this leads into why I bet on Fiziev on a parlay even, that I see a scenario where Fiziev just outclasses Gaethje and kind of puts him away quickly. And
Man,
Gaethje's just like completely overwhelmed by it. Like, what the
that
hell
would
did
be
I just run
crazy.
into?
Yeah.
And I bet on RDA when he fought Fiziev.
Mm.
And I was looking at it like the stamina. I look
Yeah,
that fight
yeah.
with Bobby Green. was sticking out. Like, even though Bobby Green's a good fighter, I was like, man, if that fight was 5 rounds, I'm like, I think Bobby Green wins it.
Yeah.
So then when he was in this 5 rounder with RDA, but dude, he looked so much better
Yeah.
in that fight. Not only did he still have that calculated approach, but he did come in with a little more aggressiveness and picked his shots so well. Was an absolute beast in that fight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
With Gaethje, again, it's hard to ever expect someone to outclass Gaethje because even if he's not the most technical guy in terms of his striking, he's a natural wrestler in his background,
True. True.
but he doesn't use it. But it doesn't really matter because he hits so hard, and I don't know if I'm by saying he's not the most technical. I might be discrediting him a little bit because that Tony Ferguson performance was just a couple years ago, and talk about a technical performance of just technically disassembling Tony
Mm.
Ferguson. Look at the
Yeah.
spiral he kind of sent Tony on
Yeah.
after that fight. So, is it the most likely scenario? No. Do I think he could? Yes, because of all the reasons I've already mentioned. I do think he's a more technical striker than Gaethje. I think in terms of what you're going to see in this fight, I imagine Fiziev's going to take somewhat of a cautious approach. Could be wrong. If he goes in there and just shows no respect for Gaethje's striking at all,
Oh boy.
I have a hard time believing that can go well.
Yeah.
It could, but I have a hard time believing it.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be the one looking to be more the counter striker, more on the outside, picking his shots, trying to frustrate Gaethje into kind of coming in with his chin open or
Yeah.
making a mistake. And Gaethje's going to be the bull, the bull in the matador type scenarios. So I could totally see if that's the way it goes, that Fiziev just kind of outclass him, even if it goes the full 15. But most likely scenario, probably not. I think it's probably going to be back and forth. I'll probably be clenching my fucking ass cheeks watching this fight.
I'll clinch up for you.
Wow, that's very nice of you.
Mm-hmm.
We will get in now to the rest of UFC 286. A lot of people have been talking about this card, Dom. They've not been being super kind to it. What do you think? Because I think it's a pretty good card. Again, if you're looking at it from a London perspective, an English card perspective, I understand there's some big names missing here. The ones I mentioned, Aspinall, Patty, Molly.
Yeah.
Those are the big three that aren't on here. But man, I still look at a lot of these fights as having real potential written all over them for being good fights. And if they're even the ones that feel like more squashes, you're getting guys like Muhammad Mokaev back and Jack Shore making his debut at 145 pounds. Like, there's definitely a lot on here.
Oh, there is.
Even Juliana Miller opening the card, the female Nate Diaz, people are calling it. So.
Yeah.
So I guess, Dominic, as you look at this main card, we already talked about 2 fights, but you got 3 more to choose from. What element of this main card, what storyline, what fight is sticking out to you either for good reasons or bad?
The biggest storyline for me is the return of Casey O'Neill, for sure, on the main card. One, because we're just so high on women's flyweight right now. It's really on fire with all these young ladies that are surging. Casey's back, hasn't fought since February of last year. Awesome fight with Roxanne Modafferi. Got the win, tore her ACL in that fight. So she had surgery. She's coming back. It's 13 months later now that she's been off. And I just think, can she pick up where she left off? She was surging. I think she's 4-0 in the UFC now, looking to get to 5-0 against a former title challenger, number 8 ranked Jennifer Maia. She's the betting favorite at -170. I like it. I like this spot. I think this is a really, really good matchup to have her return with, because it's someone that is probably, in the grand scheme of things, underrated with her skill set. And
I think I do pretty bad job of recognizing how good Jennifer Maia really is.
Yeah. So I think that a lot of questions can be answered by Casey to prove her legitimacy in this division, because this is the first real big leap. Don't get me wrong, her fighting Roxy was great. That's a veteran, a pioneer of women's MMA, but Jennifer Maia is a better fighter than Roxanne Modafferi. So to come back against someone better, even after an injury and a layoff, says a lot to me, and her hunger for this game at 25 years old. Main card wise, as a storyline outside of the main event, I think that's the number one storyline that I'm focusing on is Casey's return.
I could agree with you too, because Casey O'Neill -170, Jennifer Maia +145. When I saw that line, I jumped on it immediately. Casey O'Neill -170, jumped on it. But that's why I can say I feel like I'm underrating Jennifer Maia, because even though I'm still very confident that Casey will go in here and get a win, Dominic, when I kind of after I placed the bet and I'm kind of thinking more and I'm looking at the resumes, I'm like, you know what? Jennifer Maia, I never really gave her due. Like, yeah, I always kind of throw her in with, people like Lauren Murphy or any of these challengers for Valentina who just, were like, whatever, Jessica
Mm-hmm.
and I think she's definitely better than that. Like,
Yeah.
and that's no disrespect to either of those two either. Like, they're all probably better than I give them credit for. Are they Valentina level? Obviously not. But Jennifer Maia, I expected to get squashed by Valentina. I think she was the first one that kind of showed there was some sort of vulnerability there.
Yeah, one
She
around.
took the first round. Never really let Valentina get too comfortable in that fight. Like, yeah, Valentina kind of won the rest of the way, but it was a somewhat of an underwhelming performance for Valentina. Like, I felt like Maia was definitely more competitive in that fight than anybody thought going in. Then you look at how she fought Manon Fiore. That was in Columbus. We actually saw that fight. Manon being a very good striker, I thought she was going to dominate Jennifer Maia. And then Jennifer actually hung with her on the feet.
Yeah, Manon was forced to grapple in that fight.
Yeah. So again, I know she lost, and I think her record in the UFC is something like 5-5 or something. Like, it's not the best record. But I do think she is a battle-tested fighter in this division.
Yeah.
And is no easy out. Like, she is definitely a step up from Roxy. Even though there's something weird about Roxy causing ACL tears in her fights. And
That's
Macy
true.
Barber says
Yeah.
hello too. So I do now look at it, I'm like, you know what? Maybe these odds are like not as crazy as when I first saw them. I still think that this spot for Casey, I think she is just an absolute stud. I don't know if I put her necessarily on the same level as, people who have already proven it, like Aaron Blanchfield or now
And
Alexa
Manon.
Grasso or Manon or even Taylor Santos. But I definitely think she's close.
Yeah.
And I think she's closer already than even Jennifer Maia is. And because of that, as long as Casey O'Neill had, based off what I've seen, yes, Dominic has reason to be pause on it just because of the ACL tear, and you're not sure how someone's going to come back from that. But in MMA, I don't tend to see a ton of where that necessarily like is a long lasting like detriment to someone. Like, I feel like in team sports, you see ACL tears as like a career ender.
Yeah.
In MMA, I feel like it's somewhat of I'm sure it definitely does cause problems for a lot of these people, but it's not something that we necessarily talk about as being like this career ending
like other
injury.
sports. Yeah. Yeah.
So I do expect her to come back and be most of what she was in her last time out.
Yeah. I like that.
The next fight I'll take is the opener of the pay-per-view. Marvin Vettori coming in at -265, while Roman Dolidze coming off of a win that's shot him up the ranks against Jacker Manson. He's a +225 here. So, Dominic, I don't mean to call you out when I say this, but I just want to, allow you to kind of explain what you're thinking here. You said off recording that you thought Vettori being only a -265 was, or at least something, I might be not wording this exactly how you said it, but something along the lines of Vettori was your biggest lock of the night. So can you just, because a lot of people, I've been seeing Dolidze as being that trendy underdog pick due to the way he's looked in his last few performances, the way he dominated and bullied Jacker Manson, got him in that real funky, had him in the, what was it, the
looked like he had him in the STFU.
Yeah, it was like a calf cruncher, but also
Yeah.
whatever they call it, calf slicer, but also had like a choke on.
It was crazy.
So he's got a lot of hype right now. A lot of people are seeing the potential in him. Marvin Vettori's been somewhat under the radar for a couple years now. I mean, he
Yeah.
had his moment in the sun, had that kind of disappointing title fight performance against Izzy. He came back and looked great against Paulo Costa. Then that fight with Robert Whittaker in Paris, I feel like everybody kind of forgets already happened, and he kind of got outclassed in that one. So why are you so confident in the Italian dream, Marvin Vettori?
Yeah, man. I in this division, I don't think unless your name's Israel Adesanya or Robert Whittaker, you're not beating Marvin Vettori. That's
I'm
how
glad you
good.
said that. Those are the two
Yeah.
guys who beat him. So
Yeah, exactly. That's literally it. Other than that, he's perfect, and he's made it look relatively easy with a lot of these opponents as well. To add on top of that, I just think he has improved on the feet enough to hang with basically anyone, not those two. So on the feet, I just don't have much fear that Roman can do anything too crazy. Even if he does land good shots, Vittori's durable as all bees.
oh my
Chin's made of
God,
granite. Just go see
dude.
the fight with Paulo Costa if you don't believe me. And on the ground, Roman's good, right? He's got submission threats and whatnot, but defensively, I've not really seen him be tested. And if your first test to, see how your defensive grappling is against Marvin Vettori, I don't like your chances there. So I like Dolidze. I think he can be a player amongst these top 10, but I just think Vettori is a big jump. Even from Jack Hermanson, I think Vettori is a big jump. And, well, Vittori's beaten Jack Hermanson too.
Yeah.
So I just really like this spot here. I've got Vettori on a parlay for the bet slip later, a two-legger, I believe it is. If Dolidze can beat Marvin Vettori, he's going to make a believer out of me. If he beats Marvin Vettori, maybe Roman Dolidze can be a champion. I'll even say that.
Ooh.
But if, and only if, he beats Marvin, and I just don't see it. I really like Marvin Vettori in this spot, man. A big comeback fight off of the loss with Robert Whittaker as well from Italy. So, that Europe region, he's going to have some fans there for him. I like it. I like it.
Wow. That's crazy how you just did that. The way you worded that, it was almost like you were asking me because I've been kind of on the fence. Not, I like Vittori, but I didn't put money on him. The only thing I have on this fight, I have one of my legs of a parlay that we'll show you guys in a little bit. I have this fight to go to the second round. It's like minus 650 for that. So I mean, I
Yeah.
sure hope that happens.
Yeah.
But part of the reason I feel so confident in that is because Vittori's a grinder, man. I mean,
Yeah, he is.
there's nobody better in this division at grinding out a win than this guy. You
Yeah.
spoke to the durability already. When he takes big shots, it doesn't feel like it
Yeah.
because he's able to just eat them and keep pushing forward. He's got very good wrestling. He's
Mm-hmm.
very smart fighter in a lot of
He's
ways.
just so solid,
He's
man.
got this reputation of being like a hothead and all this stuff, but truthfully, when he's in the cage, I mean, he's a very smart and pretty calm and like doesn't let the emotions get too high in the cage. Even against Izzy, that fight had a ton of like heat going into it. And yes, he didn't put on a great performance. Izzy just, Izzy's Izzy.
Yeah.
But it never felt like he was getting overly frustrated and like making all these mistakes. He just struggled to do what he needed to do to win.
Yep.
And I think that's the thing, Dom. I think I've maybe said on this show before how highly I think of Marvin Vettori. And this was, I don't know when, this might have been after the Paulo fight, where I said if Israel Adesanya wasn't around, like Vettori could be a UFC champion. Now, the way he lost to Whittaker, maybe not. But I definitely think that he's a guy that I think everybody recognizes that he's good. But I don't think people recognize how good he is. Because this division as a whole is not the most talent stacked in the UFC. And typically the names, well, now Alex Pereira, Israel Adesanya, and Robert Whittaker get most of the shine. But I definitely think Marvin Vettori is capable of beating anybody else in that weight class.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's weird. If you're doing tiers, you might have Alex, Izzy, and Robert, and then you have a tier for Marvin, and then there's a tier for down.
Marvin's by himself. Yeah, I agree.
It really feels that way. And that's kind of a tough spot for him to be in. But he has a bit. People don't like to, you see a lot of the love Colby Covington gets in terms of his ability as a fighter, and he should. But they'll talk about him like, this guy is one of the best in the world, but Kamaru Usman just has his number, or whatever.
Right.
But you don't see Marvin Vettori get that same amount of love, and I do think he's kind of in that same place where maybe it's not just one guy, maybe it's a couple guys. You got Whittaker as well. But truthfully, Whitaker and Israel Adesanya are amazing, man. So
Yeah.
for Marvin Vettori to not be able to beat them, but has essentially beaten, not with ease, but pretty defiantly beat everybody else, I think speaks to what kind of fighter he really is. And he's only getting better. He's 29 years old.
Yeah, that's
That's the
crazy.
thing. Dolidze is being kind of looked at just in terms of experience as like the up and comer, but he's 34.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, in fight years, I know I always say that it matters a little more than, your actual age, but it is worth noting that in terms of where these guys stand age-wise, Dolidze is on the tail end of his prime, his physical prime, while Marvin Vettori is just getting in there.
Yeah, that's crazy. With the experience that he has to be saying that.
Yeah. So all in all, I really do like Marvin Vettori in this fight, and you spoke to kind of the thing I've always said has been what's really held him back, Dom. I think I've even said this before. He's kind of good everywhere, but not necessarily great anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you described, you said if Roman Dolidze beats Marvin Vettori, I believe he can be a champion. If you had asked me that question, that would be me. Like I would have been able to answer you right away that I think Marvin Vettori is going to win then because,
Yeah.
like, I like Roman, but I don't see him being a champion. I
But
don't
you
see
can
him
see Marvin.
fighting for a title. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that pretty much answered it. Like, even though I didn't bet it, like now I'm like, wow. Like, if someone had just asked me, do you believe Roman Dolidze with the win is in the title picture as a champion or could be a future champion, a future title challenger? I've been like, nah, I'm not so sure about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that speaks to how highly I think of Marvin Vettori, and
Mm.
you're probably right. I mean, if Dolidze goes in there and wins, especially if he's able to do it in a fashion that's,
That he's been doing.
yeah. I mean
Yeah.
that might just make a believer out of me too. So,
Mm.
um, yeah, no, I definitely really like this fight. I think it's a fight that's going a bit under the radar. I don't know how great or exciting of a fight it's going to be.
Yeah.
Marvin Vettori does have that bit of a grinding style, but um, I think it's a fight that matters, and
Yeah.
that's what's more important.
Yeah.
Dominic, do you want to move on to the prelims, or did you want to touch on?
I'm good for prelims.
Okay, so as far as the prelims go, I'll just kind of go first. I'll take Muhammad Mokaev here. He's taking
Okay.
on
Okay.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Jalil Filho or something like that. I think that
Mm.
F is silent. That's the key, I think. But what I do remember about Filho was he was on week 9 of last season's Contender Series, and he was actually in a very great fight. I looked it up before we started recording. He fought Roy Bear Echeverria, and that was a fight that Echeverria was winning
Mm.
almost the whole time. And then Filho came back in the third round and got a finish. And it was an awesome fight, awesome moment on that season. So Filo's good for sure. But Mokaev, this might be an interesting discussion here because Mokaev is, as we sit here today, a minus. What is he? Minus
800, I think.
8. It's like minus 800. Filo's a plus 575.
Yeah.
Through, I think it's been 3 UFC fights for Mokaev so far. Do you feel like this fat of a number for him, this minus 800, is it justified?
Ooh.
Yeah. See what I did there? Because I think it's easy to kind of knee jerk and go, well, yeah, it's Muhammad Mokaev's an absolute stud. You look at the age, you look at how he beat Cody Durden.
Mm.
And Charles Johnson's turned out to be a pretty good fighter, and
Yeah.
even though it wasn't a great fight, he won all 3 rounds. But Malcolm Gordon, who is also on this card and is
Yeah.
not someone who I think is all that great, had Mokaev's back in their
Yep.
fight.
Yeah. I
And
think
I
of it.
just wonder, it just feels like Mokaev's not, he's talking a very big game, and I respect it. And I do believe he's somewhat of a phenom because of his age and how high of a level he's fighting right now.
Mhm.
But I'm not sure. Like, he called out Brandon Royval. That was the fight he wanted.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's fighting at a caliber that makes him, top 5 territory. What do you think?
If it's anybody else, I don't like minus 800. But against a debutante, I
Yeah.
don't disagree. I don't think he should be fighting a debutante though. I mean, he's number 12. Why are we doing this? You
I
see
there
the
might have
potential
been
in
it
him.
might
I
have
don't
been a late
understand that.
it's possible this was like a late replacement scenario, but I don't know that for sure.
But even if it was, I don't think he was ever matched up with anybody though, like ranked. And I just don't
Probably
understand
not.
that
No.
because I just think the talent is there, regardless of if the fights have been exciting or not. He's finished 2 out of 3, but en route to the finish, like the Malcolm Gordon before that, it was not like a great fight. It wasn't anything crazy, but he just has that skill set, the grappling and his pressure and his pacing to compete with people at least ahead of him. Maybe not throw him in with number 4 Roy Val right now because he's so young, but throw him with number 10 David Vorak or Tim Elliott or Matt Schnell, like someone like that. Don't let him fight someone debuting, not even in the rankings. Like,
Well,
I
can
don't
I
know.
tell you what and I fully hear you, and I'm not gonna try. What I'm about to say is gonna seem like I'm defending the UFC here, and I'm not trying to. Like,
Mm,
but I feel like in any other division, what you're saying would make sense. But at flyweight, there's just not a ton of bodies,
you're right. You're right.
and this is a guy who's only 23 years old, I think, or
Yeah,
22.
it's crazy.
So even though he is ranked number 12, and because of that, he probably should be fighting guys ranked ahead of him. I mean, Dominic, I know what you just said. You're like, well, I'm not talking about giving him Brandon Royval. Well, Dominic, if he beats Tim Elliott or David Dvorak,
Then
what's the
it's
next
yeah,
logical
right,
step? Then
right.
it is a guy like that.
Yeah,
And for him to be this young and quite frankly, as good as he is, and even as good as he's looked at times, I can't say with confidence he's lived up to the odds that he's been given in
I
each
do
fight.
agree with
Because
that.
this
Yeah,
kind of number, don't get me wrong, I have a parlay with Mokaev money line on it.
yeah.
But I fully admit minus 800 is a very steep number. And you're probably right. Like in this scenario, maybe it's not because
Hmm.
Filho looked good in his fight, but he was also losing before he came back, which maybe could be an interesting element here that Mokaev, as good as he's looked, if if Philo's never truly out of the fight, that could
Yeah,
get interesting in the later rounds. But I tend to believe that minus 800 may look very justified if once the fight goes down. But I do think there's something there where Mokaev is very good, and for his age, especially, we have to consider that is a phenom, but he's not necessarily tearing the roof off the place each time. The
right,
Cody Durden
right.
fight, that was a great start. But then, yes,
It
Charles
simmered.
Johnson, it's like, and yes, I know Charles Johnson's a good fighter and has proven that now, but he took that fight on very short
Yeah,
notice. And
yeah, yeah.
then, of course, Malcolm Gordon, who he did end up finishing. Maybe I'm picking too many, I might be nitpicking too much this resume so far. I've done that with Patty Pimblett. I've done that before, and even Ian Gary a little bit. But Mahaev's younger than both those guys.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I'm kind of putting this in a vacuum to look at. Like, I believe in this guy's talent. I believe his potential is through the roof. I think he's a future title challenger for sure.
Mm,
I guess the question is like in this flyweight division that just has so many less people than every other division, even though he's ranked 12, do you kind of have to do it like this so that he can get the kind of experience he needs to put on the kinds of shows that he's capable of doing?
right. Yeah. No, those are all good questions. Well, I feel like at this point, with what we've seen so far, matched with the hype that he came in with, I kind of want to see him do something like it- quick and easy. Boom,
Isn't
do it.
that kind of what we said about Ian Gary? And then, yes, I
Yeah,
know Gary got knocked down, but he kind of did it. Like he went out there
yeah.
and
He had a
looked
flawless.
great.
Yeah. So some even if it's not a finish, show me just perfection.
And,
I
I
know
feel
that's a
like
lot to ask,
I
but
feel like I'm being nitpicky because he did finish
yeah,
Malcolm Gordon and he did finish Cody Durden, and that was a spectacular debut.
yeah.
But it just, I mean, I do think Malcolm Gordon taking his back is definitely like some calls for,
I feel like I need to see him replicate a Cody Durden-esque performance again,
yeah.
to be honest, in this spot
Well,
especially.
and you have to, yeah, you do have to consider the competition here. This is the
Yeah,
kind of guy, no disrespect to Philo, For all we know, he's going to end up being like a Charles Johnson, where he ends up surprising us and hanging
Yeah.
around for a while.
Yeah.
But debutant, contender series guy who, again, had a comeback win, was not winning the fight for most of it. It feels like the kind of spot where a guy, you compare that guy who, if he doesn't really, if his opponent in the third round doesn't cost himself the fight, he's a guy that's not even in the UFC, if you want to look at it like that, versus a guy who's looked at as the future of the division, maybe. You put it like that, maybe he should be looking like a minus 800 here.
Right. Yeah. I think it's all fair. We'll see what happens on Saturday. For mine, prelim-wise, right? Honestly, there's only one for me personally, but I am glad you brought up Mokaev. It's the tank. It's Jack Shore from Wales.
Yeah.
The dude's a stud, but faltered in his last one. It was, of course, to my man,
shout out
Ricky
to
Simone.
Dom called it. Dom called that one. So,
but I mean, dude, he went 5-1 at bantamweight, and if your only loss is to Ricky Simone, that's nothing to hang your hat on here. So I'm a bit surprised actually that he's going to 145, being number 15 ranked at 135.
He still is. How weird is that?
Still ranked.
And not to cut you off, but Saeed dropped out of the rankings. Saeed was ranked 14th, and Jack Shore was 15th. Saeed loses to Martinez, and they just plopped Martinez in Saeed's spot and took Saeed out of the rankings. But Jack Shore still at 15.
Probably just wanted to keep some sort of ranking on him for this card, if I had to imagine. But
So let me ask you, and I'll let you continue on. But Jack Shore going up 10 pounds. Typically going up in weight, we look at a little more positively, or we feel more optimistic about than a guy who goes down in weight.
Yeah.
So do you think this is the right decision for him to do this? Like, do you feel like he had hit a wall at 135, or is this a bit of an unnecessary move or a risky move? Where do you think about the weight change?
It's definitely comes as a surprise because he had never really, from what I know of Jack Shore, shown any issues cutting the weight and stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, he's pretty big. I mean, he's 5'9". That's big for a 135er, I guess, but he's not like super thick or anything.
And I didn't think he looked bad against Ricky. I mean, he got finished, but the fight was very competitive until Ricky was just able to catch him on his back.
And I mean, dude, he's 28 years old. He was 16-0 going into that fight. Like, you got to lose eventually. Only so many people can be like Khabib and never lose. So that loss is, again, nothing to hang your hat on. But he's moving up the very next fight. When was that fight? That was in July last year.
Yeah, that was the second London card.
Yeah, you're right. So it's been a bit of a layoff for him. Let's see how he shapes out at 145. He's a big favorite, minus 500. I expect him to win in this spot. I have him on a parlay with that line, but I'm just intrigued by how he's going to fill out at 145. Makwan Amirkhani, he's lost 4 out of 5, but it's not like he's a scrub. He's very experienced. He has a ton of UFC fights against pretty high level might be a bit much, but solid level competition, I'll say. So how's he going to fare here? How will Jack treat this fight? Will he kind of go the same way that he did at bantamweight and look pretty damn good? His fight IQ is next level. I think that's the best thing about watching him fight, is just how calculated and smart he is, but dangerous and threatening at the same time. Much like the return fight for Casey, I think this is a perfect matchup to start your career at 145 if I'm Jack Shore here.
It's a good way to put it. Amirkhani's no slouch, but he's very vulnerable right now.
Yeah.
So it also kind of feels like he's just on the tail end. He's starting to go down a little bit. We'll move on to the early prelims. I will just mention that Chris Duncan Omar Morales fight, I think, is going to be a banger. Dominic, I so badly wanted to bet Omar Morales here. Morales' UFC record is doesn't paint the full picture. The guy's like 3-3 in the UFC. Chris Duncan looks like the stud from the Contender Series, and he's very entertaining. Goes for broke, goes for the finish. Duncan, I believe, was in that other crazy fight from last season where he was nearly out, and then somehow came back zombie mode and knocked out his opponent. If he has that kind of vulnerabilities against Morales, dude, I think Morales might win this fight pretty handily.
Morales hits like a truck. Yeah.
I think the bet I ended up taking on that one, though, was, I want to say, to not go to round 3, I believe was what I had. So Yeah, to not start round 3 minus 150. So I'm just hoping that, let's get a finish inside the first 2 rounds. How about that?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
So Dominic, I'll kick it to you. Early prelims, what's sticking out to you first? I
Maybe.
think this card looks fuller when you get to the bottom here. Like you look
Oh
at
yeah,
some,
there's definitely good fights.
because
It's
even
just
from the very bottom, Juliana Miller, every fight feels like it does mean a little something.
yeah. I have a bet on Juliana to win by finish. I also have a bet on Jake Hadley to win by finish. I think
Mhm.
actually I'll talk Jake Hadley for a second because
Okay.
he had that really controversial, wacky Dana White
Yeah.
Contender Series week. Probably
The
should have
only
even been
guy.
awarded the contract.
Only guy in Contender Series up to this point that has been given a contract after missing weight.
Yeah, yeah, and he looked good, and obviously in that fight he got the sub, but then he loses his debut. Didn't really show anything. If honestly, what he did show is a lack of fight IQ. He lost that decision to Alan Nascimento, but he bounced back. He submitted Carlos Candelario last November, so that's a good win. He's going up against Malcolm Gordon. Malcolm Gordon has been finished in all 6 of his losses, but he almost did get finished against Mokaev. You want to talk about sweating one out? I think I had to sweat that one out, actually, if I remember correctly. So it could be another one here, but maybe Hadley has righted the ship. 26 years old. He's got 2 fights under his belt in the UFC now. He's maturing a little bit here. If he can show to be smart and utilize his very good ground game, because I know Malcolm Gordon does not have a very good takedown defense. I think he could have a relatively easy win here, but Gordon is competent enough to make this not easy for Jake Hadley. So I just want to see how he can respond. Can he put a win streak together at flyweight?
Which Hadley of the 2 performances we've seen is going to show up?
Right. Yeah.
Me and you are banking on the one from the last performance
Yeah,
because we both
exactly.
have him to win by finish, and that's minus 135.
Yes.
This is my first time betting on Hadley since that first fight. I did bet
Yep.
on there, and I said I wouldn't do it again. Well,
Yep. I think probably might have even done the same thing.
because Nascimento, I think, is a very underrated guy right
He is.
now.
He is.
Just a massive dude at 125. But at the time, Hadley, being that Dana kind of gave this guy the stamp of approval, like, I'm going to give him a
Yeah.
chance. And
Yeah.
I mean, when missing weight on the Contender Series is like just the tip of the iceberg for the week he had there,
Yeah.
like the crazy week he had where, Sean and
They
Sean and
stormed
Vic,
out of the room.
yeah, they didn't want him. They were like, absolutely do not give this guy a contract. Apparently, he was a complete head case and was
Yep.
rude to all the people working the event and stuff. He seemed shocked when people told him that after. I don't know. It's all real weird.
Yeah.
But this guy was given quite a lot of shine during that time, despite all that headache. Dana really gave him a stamp of approval,
Mm-hmm.
and he sort of came out flat against Nascimento.
Yeah.
Looked much better in his last time out. Malcolm Gordon is coming off of one of the better performances of his UFC career when he fought Mokaev, when you consider expectations
Yeah.
versus what you got. However, much of what you just said, the finishing rate and his losses, I think Hadley is just a guy with much more potential.
Yeah.
I tend to believe that what we saw the last time out from Hadley is more what to expect moving forward.
I agree.
That all kind of plays a part in me leaning pretty heavily on Hadley. But if Malcolm Gordon did win, would I be super surprised? No, I think it would just kind of answer, okay, Hadley's just not really who we thought he might be.
Literally my exact thoughts. That's perfect.
I'll give a little shout, Lerone Murphy back on this card, a guy I
Been a
really
while
like.
too.
And this is a fight where I like him quite a bit. He's got the UFC experience. He's going up against Gabriel Santos, who's making his debut here. I believe Santos, I want to say he's an LFA champion. Could be wrong about that.
I think he is.
Do you want to fact check that for me while I keep talking?
He
So
is.
I believe
Yes,
he's
LFA. Yeah.
LFA champion. Lerone Murphy's an interesting guy where so many of these guys from that part of the world come through Cage Warriors, and he's one of the few that did not.
Yeah.
He even explained it. I forget where I was watching that. I don't know if that was on MMA on Points video with him or what, but he said how his coach and people at Cage Wars. There was some politics there. They didn't like his coach, so he wasn't really being looked at very seriously. They tried to get on Contender Series, kind of kept getting passed up. And then right when he was about to be like, fuck it, let's take this fight in Cage Warriors, he gets the call from the UFC. So I've really liked what I've seen from Lerone so far. I would love a little more activity out of him.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Now, I do think injuries have played a part in the more sporadic, activity, but every performance he's had has been fucking awesome. And
Yeah.
I mean, he's fought nothing but pretty good competition. I mean,
Oh,
Amirkhani
dude,
is his
yeah.
last win, and that's the weakest of his 3 opponents, I would argue.
Yeah.
He's got a draw in his debut. He took on very short notice. I think it was 10 days notice against Zubaira Takugov, and then wins over Douglas Silva, De Andrade, and Ricardo Ramos.
Mm,
I mean, that's a sleepy, really solid first 4 fights on your resume.
very.
So I like him a lot. He's only like a minus 170-ish favorite. And I was a little surprised. Minus 175, Santos plus 150. I was
I've
a
seen
little
a lot of people
surprised.
backing him too.
But
So
Santos undefeated,
mm,
does come in. I mean, LFA champion's nothing to scoff at. I mean,
yeah.
that shows if in terms of regional talent, he is up at the top. I don't know how it's going to go, how it's going to get done, because neither of these guys have been finished. Neither of these guys have lost.
Mm.
But I expect fun. And I think we could be due for quite a shock here because I could see someone getting put to sleep, even though it's never happened for either one of them.
Yeah, I like that. It should be fun. And honestly, I am just quickly excited to see what Juliana Miller can do now with her official UFC debut.
She's a
as
killer,
well.
man. By the way, she's fighting the wife of Dan Hardy here. So,
Oh, is it really? Wow.
yeah, I believe that's Dan Hardy's wife. Dan was on the MMA Hour and talked about how
Okay.
he's cornering her for this fight, even though he just got announced as like the head of fighter operations for PFL Europe. I don't know if you saw
Oh,
it.
good for him. He's a
He's
great
also, I mean,
mind.
he's doing a ton for that. He's
Yeah.
doing the broadcast. He's still doing all those breakdowns he does on YouTube and
He's
for
so
BT Sport
intelligent.
and stuff. Yeah, he's the man. But him and the UFC kind of had that falling out at the
Yeah.
end there.
Yeah.
So I'm happy though that they're letting him corner his wife. Randy Couture had similar issues with the UFC, and they infamously would not let him corner his own son. So
Mm.
that's a little history for you right
You
there.
always give me something that I didn't know before.
But unfortunately for Dan Hardy's wife, she's only 1-4 in the UFC. I mean, this really feels like the goat, Jurassic Park, where the goat's kind of put out for the T-Rex to just kind of shred apart. But I will just say, Juliana's super inexperienced, though. I mean,
yeah.
just 3-1. I like her a lot. I think she's a lot of fun, and
Her
she
attitude.
surprised me a lot with her win
Yeah.
over Brogan Walker. Like, I
For
think I had a
sure.
bet on Brogan going into that fight. She surprised me with just how much more polished she looked than anybody you would expect at this type of record and inexperience. I think she should get a pretty easy win here, minus 110 on
By
by
finish.
finish.
Yep.
Believe me and Dom have that. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, that's probably. I mean, I will say low key banger Christian Leroy. That's the first person you'll see named
I
Chris
know.
Duncan on the card.
Yeah.
But Christian Duncan, this guy's going to get probably one of the loudest pops of the night, and you probably don't even know. For most people watching, don't even know who he is. He is a Cage Warriors champion, absolute beast of a man. He's taking on our boy Sid from Toy Story. Dusko
Man, we've talked about his whole
Todorovic.
career in the UFC.
We really have. We've gone from having, thinking this guy had a lot of potential, and now we're kind of, I don't know where we sit with Dusko.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's in some
he's
bangers,
coming off a
man.
win, man. Jordan Wright, but that was a dicey
Yeah.
fight. It was not the most technical fights, but one thing I respect about Dusko is he is kill or be killed. He goes in there for the finish.
Oh yeah.
And I expect nothing less here against Christian Duncan because Duncan can crack.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a lot of fun for as long as it lasts. I did take the under 1.5 at minus 115. Truthfully, I kind of prefer what Dom did, putting it on a parlay and giving yourself that extra round.
Yeah.
So the under 1.5s have not gone well for me this year. So far, it's been like the one thing I've not done very well with MMA betting this year. Hopefully, this will be turning of the tide.
I hope so.
So that is pretty much it for UFC 286. We could have talked about even more fights. I mean, I think Jai
It's a
Herbert,
great card,
Ludovic
guys.
Klein's good.
Yeah.
Like the fight really feels more the fact that even on the first fight of the card, you have something that either interests you or
Right.
has a story.
Right.
Even the most stacked cards, typically at the very bottom, you're not necessarily saying that. So
Yeah.
I think it's a card that is deeper than it is wide. Is that the way I want to put it?
I'll
It's not
agree, I
necessarily
guess.
stacked with big names, but I think it's a deep card.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
So with that, Dominic, we are going to transition into some fight announcements because we actually got quite a few on here. I was a little surprised by how many. But I'll just touch on all of them or mention all of them, and I'll let you kind of say what sticks out to you. Bellator 294 and 295, that's a double header coming to us April 21st and 22nd in Hawaii. Has seen a few fights be announced. Danny Sabatello is back, taking on Marcus Breno. Then you got Aaron Pico back, taking on Otto Rodrigues, and Mads Burnell taking on Justin Gonzalez. Meanwhile, on May 6th, UFC 288, Matt Frevola taking on Drew Dober. You kidding me?
Mm.
June 3rd, Kai Car France taking on Amir Albazi. Whew. And lastly, June 10th, UFC 289, Miranda Maverick taking on, someone who's been defying the odds in terms of what I've expected from her. Jasmine Jasudavicius. Dominic, what kind of sticks out to you here, either the good, the bad, or the ugly?
What are we doing, Bellator? Why are we doing these matchups? What the fuck are we doing?
We did not talk about these off recording, so this is all.
I didn't know they were happening until I saw the script, and I'm pissed.
Yeah, I was not expecting this from you.
I saw all the first names, Danny, Pico, Mads. I'm like, damn, Hawaii's gonna be loaded. Who? Marcus Breno, Otto Rodrigues, Justin Gonzalez. What the fuck are we doing, Bellator, with these stupid matchups, dude? These are all top 5 fighters. 2 of them, Aaron Pico, Mads Burnell, same weight class, number 3 and number 6. Nah, we'll let them fight 2 guys I've never heard of before. That makes more sense than them fighting each other on a huge card on a back-to-back doubleheader in Hawaii. Terrible. Just sickening. PFL's definitely the number 2 organization. I can't stand this matchmaking. I'm so frustrated at this. Danny Sabatello just fought for a title. He's fighting who? Who's Marcus Breno? No disrespect to any of those 3 fighters, but these are the matchups that don't need made. It's horrendous, horrible. Frevola Drew Dober is my favorite, though, on this. Actually, no, it's not. Kai Car France Amir Albazi is my favorite of those fight announcements. That is a banger. KKF coming back after losing the title. Fight with Brandon Moreno. Amir Albazi is putting it all together right now. A beast of a man at flyweight. That's going to be a banger in the summertime for June. Yeah. 3 fights for UFC, 3 fights for Bellator, and that's a clean 3-0 sweep from the UFC on today's fight announcements. I'm sorry.
Wow. Dominic,
I don't usually act like that.
Dom, I think that is the most heated I've ever seen you get on this show.
Yeah.
That is more heated than when I scoffed at you for saying Conor McGregor was the biggest combat sports star in history.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I love that. I wish you should do that more often.
I just don't get angry often, but gee, many Christmas, man. What are we doing?
Well, I will just say for the Bellator fights, I can't believe am I taking a Dominic approach here where I'm about to be like,
you probably need to because I just went enough for both of us.
The one thing I'm actually surprised you went. I wasn't expecting that. So I get what you're saying for sure. Maybe it's just because I'm not surprised anymore that Bellator does stuff like this.
Yeah, I guess
their matchmaking is just a lot different than what the UFC does. They tend to do. I mean, that's why you always hear about when Bellator cards come around. Get your heavy favorite parlay together because there's always like people with minus 800 plus all over the card. I will just say I'm excited to see all 3 of those guys back. Marcus Breno, though, he is 25. He's 15-2. He fought in LFA. He's coming off a win. Might have even been his Bellator debut. I want to say it is. No, yeah. His Bellator debut was a win over Josh Hill, which I think that's a pretty decent win in Bellator. So I will just say, like, I do think he's not necessarily he shouldn't be fighting Danny Sabatello. Like, I feel like that's kind of unfair to him,
Yeah.
to be fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think Justin Gonzalez fought Aaron Pico before, actually, which is kind of funny that now, we're talking about both their next fight announcements, but
Yeah.
obviously not against each other. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Justin Gonzalez did. Yeah, his only loss in Bellator, by the way, is to Aaron Pico. By the way, he does have a win over Kai Kamaka III, who we like a little
All
bit.
right,
So.
you're calming me down a little, just a
No,
little
I
bit.
get what you're saying though. Like these guys are probably all better than we're giving them credit for.
Yeah.
Like all three of those
Yeah.
guys are probably good fighters.
It's
The
nothing against
problem is the
them.
problem is
It's who they're
they should.
fighting.
It's the fact that they're fighting the guys that these are top 5 ranked guys in their
Exactly.
divisions.
Thank
Aaron
you.
Pico, if he had won against Jeremy Kennedy, was likely getting a title shot.
Yeah.
And now he's fighting Otto Rodrigues. And again, that's not a disrespect because I'm sure Otto Rodrigues is a good fighter. It's just Otto Rodrigues is not in the title picture at all. He's not. I'm not even sure if he's fought in Bellator before.
Well, dude, Aaron Pico and Mads Burnell are going to be on the same card, not fighting each other when they
Yeah,
haven't in
doesn't
the
that
past.
seems very strange? And Dominic, what a lot of this probably is Danny Sabatello coming off a loss, Aaron Pico coming off a loss.
Yeah.
I actually don't know for sure about Mads Burnell, but if I had to guess, do you want to look it up before I
I'm
answer
looking
that?
right now. I'm looking right now. He
I'm gonna
lost to
say
Pedro Carvalho. Yeah.
coming off a loss, like I
Yeah.
said, 3 for 3.
Yep.
So that's why this is happening. They're trying to give them get right fights. You see it a lot more in boxing than you do MMA, but I don't hate it just because I'm glad these guys are a part of it, just to fill out the card more. But it feels like a missed opportunity, especially with Pico and Burnell. Like, why
Yeah,
aren't
you
they
talked
fighting?
me down a little on the Sabatello fight because maybe Marcus
No,
Breno
but
could
I
have a fun
appreciate
fight.
that you did. I appreciate that you did that though.
But
Because
like specifically that Pico and Burnell, those are just misses. Those are just they should fight each other. That's a huge fight.
But even
if
though
they
I
fight
said that
each other.
about Breno, Dom, he's not. I don't even think he's not ranked. Like,
No, like for sure. He shouldn't.
Sabatello
Right.
is literally just fought for a title and was deserving of that opportunity. That was one of the biggest fights Bellator had last year.
Yeah, it was huge. Like
why are we going?
I know some of these people are available. I know they ain't all taken up because Bellator puts one fight every 2 months. They don't have that many fight cards, man.
No,
it's just
so
disappointing.
even though I'm taking a different approach here, like, please, I want Dominic to do that more often.
Y'all may not get it much, but when you do, I guess it comes out pretty aggressive at least.
Yeah, I don't even feel like I can talk about the UFC fights anymore. But
what's
I will
your
just
favorite
say,
though? It's got to be.
Oh God,
You love Dober though, that jaw.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
jaw.
the Crimson Chin, man. I mean, Car France Albazi is the biggest fight on here,
especially implication wise. That's big
because I think that's a fight a lot of people are going to underestimate,
as they always do with
that better be on a fucking main card. I'll be pissed.
Hey, listen, if they made it a fight night headliner, you wouldn't hear me complain.
I agree. I completely agree, Dominic. This is the kind of fight that we talk about.
How about you bring KKF back to Columbus? Hello, he blew the roof off that place.
Albazi's in a position where he needs to kind of prove he can do the whole 25 minutes, 5-round thing because he's been beasting on everybody.
Yep.
But Car France, that's a different beast for this guy. I mean,
it's a sick fight.
That's an awesome fight. If it's not on the main card, may not watch.
Boycott?
I may not watch the first fight of the night. I'll boycott the first fight of the night.
Okay.
You know what? I will boycott watching MMA if that happens, I'll watch the card, but then I'm boycotting MMA from Sunday through Thursday.
Like just off socials. And
I'm just boycotting MMA. Like I will not watch any MMA that's on TV from Sunday through Thursday.
Well, how much MMA's on Sunday?
I will you know what I'll do? If they do that, if they don't put it on the main card, I will not watch or buy next season's PFL Challenger Series.
And if they make it a main event, you will watch every single Challenger Series card.
Yes, I will compete in the Challenger Series.
Perfect. Just what I needed.
But yeah, no, these are great fights. The Jazuda Vicious Maverick. At first, I was like, I probably won't put it on here. I'm like, you know what?
No, I actually
Jazuda
like it.
Vicious. You know, she's
She's a
trying to
good
guard.
grappler.
Yeah,
you know?
she is, and you know what? She deserves a little more respect. She's even trying to get her name out there. She got her way on the MMA Hour, by the way. So she's making some waves. So I thought that, but Miranda Maverick is, I think very highly of Maverick, and I think
Yeah,
it's
if
kind of
Jasmine wins that,
kind of a shame that Maverick's she's kind of stagnating right now. Like I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah,
And it's
I
not even
agree.
due to her own performances. It's like they just keep giving her the same type of challenges.
I wonder, like, are people declining to fight her almost? Like, because surely you got to figure she wants in. She's been in the top
You
15
really
already.
think that? Like, do you think
I don't
people are
know.
like worried to fight her? Because look, I mean, you look at like what Blanchfield did to her.
Yeah.
Someone's got, and I know Blanchfield's like,
But she's like the tier below Blanchfield in terms of skill sets.
right? No,
I
no,
don't
I
know.
agree. No,
I
I
don't
know
know.
she's a beast. It's just you got to think that these fighters they operate under nothing but confidence almost. Like they're just
Yeah.
constantly confident, even if it's almost like dumb how confident they are.
Yeah.
But to think that they would see her look that vulnerable against somebody and then be like declining to fight her, I don't know. But yeah, let's move on to the bet slip. Below average
It's
one
back
that
on the
is.
previews, Noah.
Yeah, back on the previews, and we kind of took the approach of any bets that popped up during our actual discussion of the card, we'd kind of hit them there.
Yeah.
So now you'll see the full slips for both of us. I'm already done with mine, but we do kind of get for future. It is possible we'll kind of come on here with like half of ours done,
Yeah, it just
and maybe there'll
depends.
be more. And because of that, you should follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok at the Bajma, the BAJ MMA.
Yeah.
Especially Twitter. That's where Dominic or myself will be posting these bet slips every Saturday before the card, or Friday if there's Bellator, PFL, whatever. So make sure to follow us there if you want to get all of our picks for the weekend. You can fade us, you can ride with us. We just are happy that you're engaged with the content, right?
Lovely.
So, Dominic, I'll just kind of hit a few of mine that I didn't touch on. I think Gunnar Nelson by submission at plus 120 is a steal. And I'm saying that
great odds.
Even though I will admit this was a late ad. I at first did not have this when I sent Dom my list. The reason why, Dominic, despite the vulnerabilities, to put it lightly, that Barberena has with his takedown defense and with his ability on the ground, he's only been submitted one time in his entire career, MMA career, and that was his last fight with RDA.
Oh, yeah, he did get finished in that fight.
He has never been submitted before that.
Oh, excuse me. Yeah.
So part of me was like pausing on that. But then if you kind of look at the guys he's fought, you see that there's not a ton of high-level grappling or submission threats on his resume. Gunnar Nelson is an extraordinary submission talent. That guy's got very crafty and quick and fast submissions. I think this is a steal at plus 120. I could see Gunnar Nelson winning it. He had Takashi Sato's back for like 3 whole rounds.
Yeah, and didn't. I know.
But Sato just showed a great kind of ability to just not let himself get too vulnerable back there. Like, you're in the most vulnerable place in MMA, and he just somehow made it work, even though he lost.
For 15 minutes to not get subbed.
I don't see Barberena being able to do that here. So that's my favorite play probably of all these. I took Herbert Klein over 2.5 plus 140. Truthfully, I was trying to get some plus money stuff on here. In my head, I kind of like Ludovic Klein here to sort of grind his way to a victory to take down Jai Herbert, who has had kind of iffy takedown defense. If the fight stays standing, I'm a little more nervous because I think either guy could finish on the feet. But if Klein's able to just kind of take advantage of what his true advantage is in this fight, and that's in the grappling department, I think he really could grind out a decision victory here. Me and Dominic kind of going head to head on this one. There is a world where we both hit.
There is.
There is
we have a 2.5 minute gap.
Yeah, I was about to say, to be specific, a 2.5 minute window where we could both hit.
Yep.
But I think we pretty much talked about the rest on here. So 2 parlays. The 2-unit parlay was a mistake. I meant to only do it for 1. But, I like it enough to where, fuck it, let's ride.
I gotta love that attitude in sports
Yeah.
betting. So yeah, quickly, we both are doing Juliana Miller by finish, -110. We talked on that. Jake Hadley by finish, we're both doing. We touched on that. For my parlay, I already talked to I did 3 parlays this week. This one is -115. Jack Shore, leg number 1. Talked about him already in the breakdown. Muhammad Mokaev, already talked about him. And the third leg is Christian Duncan and Dusko under 2.5 rounds. Those guys are just going to have a banger. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around it. I'd say the stats, but I'm just wasting my breath because the way that they're going to clash, if that under don't hit, I'm going to be in a world of pain. I'll tell you that much. Parlay number 2, +110, 2 legs. Herbert Klein inside the distance. There's that 2.5 minute window that we have. And wouldn't it just be beautiful if it hits just like that?
Dom, I'm hoping for it so bad.
That would be magical.
Because usually when me and Dom go against each other, not on purpose, but on accident, Dominic tends to come out on top. And, that's, I will say, it makes me glad I'm not watching with him because he loves to rub my nose in it when he hits. And I actually, if he's just rooting for somebody and I've got a bet on it and it loses, he loves to rub my nose in it. Now, I really can't say that anymore because
Thank
after what
you.
happened with Alexa Grasso, our
Yeah.
buddy JP had just lost money and I screamed throughout the house. But anyways, Dom, continue with your bet slip.
And the second leg on that is the debutantes facing each other. I did it again inside the distance. Sam Patterson and Yanel Ashmaz. Sam Patterson has gone to a decision 2 times in 12 fights, and his only loss is by knockout. Ashmaz has gone to a decision 1 time in 6 fights. I like it here, even though it bit me in the ass last week. I'm doubling down this week. If it doesn't hit this week, then maybe I'll stop doing debutante versus debutante inside the distances. But
You did that meme, the goofy meme, where it's like, I'll fucking do it again.
basically. And then parlay number 3, the final bet of the weekend, 2 legs, -109. Marvin Vettori money line. Already kind of went in on why I think that is pretty much for certain. Could jinx myself, but at least I'm jinxing my own bet, not Noah's this time. And the second leg, Chris Duncan, not to be confused with Christian Leroy Duncan, versus Omar Morales inside the distance. Going to be a banger, man. Noah touched on the stats for that one earlier as well. So I really like these. And then Noah does like 1 unit bets outside of the +122 one is a 2 unit bet, I know. And then for this year, I have changed up my style. So like if it's a -135 for Jake Hadley, I'm doing 1.35 units. So you'll see that on the screen. But we got a big slate, man. Big slate for the pay-per-view. And I'm excited.
And yeah, and I'm surprised at how many I ended up with because I was going
It's
through the
not
card.
a
I
great
don't
one,
like it.
man.
I did not see a ton of value, and yet I still ended up with maybe more plays than I've had in my previous 2 weeks. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird how that works. I mean, a couple of these again were kind of me trying to find as much value and plus money as I could.
Yeah.
A couple parlays, you got to do that a little bit. I will say, Dominic, I also went back to something I said I'd never do again. After the infamous Vicente Luque loss to Bilal Muhammad, putting that many units at risk of one thing happening has been something I've been adamant about not wanting to do. Well, if Gunnar Nelson loses, that's 3 units down the drain. So,
oh man, the tide really can change so quickly in MMA betting.
yeah. So, again, if I had smartened up to the Nelson by submission one, would I have put Gunny on the parlay? Probably, but also you have to consider that I didn't even mean to put 2 units on it. So we're going to war, Dom. And you know what? I think it was a sign from God that he's like, nah, double that.
Maybe. I mean, I do like it. I do like the parlay genuinely. Like it's a little risky, but I like it the more I look at it. So
you know what they say? I had a shirt that said this in high school. No pressure, no diamonds.
oh, I like
It's
that.
It's a double meaning because
Pressure makes diamonds.
Pressure makes diamonds and pressure makes diamonds. So
correct.
So with that, anyways, we will move on to our last segment of the day. The only segment we could end the show on, Dom. It's a little segment we like to call closing statements.
Yeah.
Point of the show where me and Dominic can talk about anything and everything MMA related or not. So, Dominic, any closing statements for today?
Honestly, it's just to go back onto the intro a little bit, and it's just the fact of the matter of what are we picking? Who are we picking to win it all March Madness if you watch college basketball out there? Did you make your bracket? Do you still have a perfect bracket on Friday when you're listening to this? That would be quite impressive considering what's already happened today on Thursday. I went with Purdue. Noah, feel free to share your champion you predicted.
I went with Alabama. I don't know what's happened since we've been on recording. So for all I know, all my bets are just dead. Maybe we should check while we're on recording. Let's just currently Auburn up by 4 on Iowa with 9 minutes left in the first half. Many games that wrapped up. Arkansas won by 10 against Illinois. So that was good for my bracket. Damn, is that really it? Why do I feel like I'm missing games on here? Don't matter. So I guess all my bets are still alive, so that's good.
There you go.
But my name's Noah Baker. That's Dominic Salee. We'll see you guys on Monday.